Welcome to Monk's Temple. Come in. Find a place to settle. Perhaps you're sitting, or lying down. Maybe you're moving, walking slowly. Wherever you are, let your attention drift here, to the sound of this voice. Let the weight of the day, the weight of the week, the weight of all those invisible burdens you carry, let them settle. You don't have to put them down yet. Just let them settle where they are, like sand in a jar of water slowly drifting to the bottom. You're here. And I have a feeling I know why. Not the surface reason, but the quiet one beneath it. There's a hum in you, isn't there? A low, constant vibration. It's not pain, not exactly. It's more like a homesickness for a place you've never been. A longing to finally arrive. To be enough, just as you are. To feel that the person you present to the world is finally, solidly, real. You've tried to answer this hum. You've built monuments to your worth. Achievements, relationships, the approval of certain faces, the rejection of others. You've collected evidence for your case. And for a moment, when the verdict seems positive, there's relief. But it never lasts. The hum returns. Sometimes as a whisper, not quite. Sometimes as a shout. And you think, I must build a better case. I must become more valuable. What if I told you that hum is not a signal of something broken? What if it's the sound of something profoundly intact? What if it's not a call to build, but a call to see? For the next while, we are not going to build anything. We are going to examine the builder. The one who feels it must construct a self worthy of love, of peace, of existing. We're going to look at the tools it uses, explanation, comparison, relentless doing, and see why those tools keep creating the very exhaustion they were meant to solve. This is not about becoming a better you. This is about discovering what you actually are, beneath all the improvement projects. The teachings we'll explore come from a tradition over 2,500 years old, from the insights of a man we call the Buddha. He didn't offer a new self to become. He offered a way to see through the exhausting illusion of a separate, solid self altogether. So, get comfortable. Let your breath find its own rhythm. There is nowhere to get to. Nothing to achieve in this listening. Just be here, with the hum, and let's look at it together, gently. Let me begin with a story. Not from the old texts, but from my own life, many years ago. When I first began to practice, I was fervent. I wanted peace, clarity, enlightenment. I wanted the whole thing, and I wanted it now. My mind was a crowded, noisy marketplace of desires and anxieties. I thought the path was about cleaning out that marketplace, making it orderly, silent. Behind the monastery where I stayed was a small, neglected plot of land. It was all weeds, tangled vines, and rocky soil. It looked useless. But I saw a project. I thought, this is perfect. I will clear this land. I will make a beautiful, orderly garden. It will be my meditation. A symbol of my own mind becoming clear. So, every day after sitting meditation, I went to that plot. I ripped out weeds until my hands were raw. I hauled stones until my back ached. I planned where the roses would go, where the neat rows of vegetables would be. I worked with a kind of desperate energy. This garden would prove my diligence. Its beauty would be proof of my progress. One afternoon, I was nearly overcome by frustration. For every weed I pulled, two seemed to sprout. The soil was stubborn. An old monk, who often sat silently on a bench watching the forest, saw me struggling. He had never said a word to me before. He walked over, his movements slow and fluid like water. He looked at my blistered hands, at the torn earth, at my furious, determined face. He didn't tell me to stop. He simply pointed to a large, flat stone half buried at the edge of the plot. "Sit," he said. Just that one word. Annoyed, but obedient, I sat. He sat beside me. For what felt like an hour, we said nothing. I fidgeted. I rehearsed my garden plans in my head. I thought about how much better it would look than the wild forest. Then, slowly, my mind began to quiet. I started to hear. Not thoughts, but sounds. The wind in the leaves above us, a sound like a gentle exhalation. The call of a bird I'd never noticed, 3 clear notes, repeated. The buzz of a single bee moving from one tiny, unnamed purple flower to another in the very weeds I had been tearing out. I looked. Really looked. In the tangle I called a mess, there was an immense, intricate order. The vines supported the weaker plants. The weeds were feeding insects and holding the soil. The stones provided homes for creatures. The forest was leaning into this space, not as an invasion, but as a natural extension of itself. It was already a complete, living system. It didn't need to be a garden. It needed only to be what it was. The old monk finally spoke, his eyes still on the forest's edge. You are trying to grow a rose in a place where the wild orchid already blooms perfectly. He placed a hand lightly on the soil. This is not a project. It is a discovery. You are not the gardener of your mind. You are the soil, the rain, the seed, and the flower. And the weed. All of it. Trying to pull part of it out is just the soil fighting itself. He got up and left. I never touched that plot again. I simply visited it. I sat on the stone. I watched the seasons move through it. In the winter, it was a skeleton of beauty, stark and clear. In the spring, it exploded with life I hadn't planted. It became my greatest teacher. That useless garden taught me the first and last thing: the fundamental exhaustion doesn't come from having a messy mind. It comes from believing you are the frantic gardener, separate from the garden, responsible for forcing it into a shape it never asked to be. The peace you seek isn't the peace of a weedless flower bed. It's the peace of the space that holds both the weed and the flower, without needing to choose. You are not a project. You are a happening. A living, breathing, messy, beautiful, complex happening. And within that happening is a awareness that watches it all, the weeds of worry, the flowers of joy, the stones of old pain. That awareness is not messy. It is like the sky that holds the weather. The weather is not the sky. Your thoughts and feelings are not you. If this way of seeing, of resting, speaks to you, you are not alone on this path. Consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. It's a way to water these seeds of understanding. Each talk is simply another invitation to sit on the stone, and watch the garden of your own being, without needing to change a single leaf. We take this insight from the garden inward. The Buddha's most radical discovery was not a list of rules, but a profound observation about what we call I. We believe, deeply, that inside us is a solid, permanent, unchanging self. A little commander in the center of our head, who has likes and dislikes, who gets hurt, who needs to be defended, improved, and validated. We spend our lives serving this commander, building walls for it, collecting trophies for it, exhausting ourselves in its name. But the Buddha asked a simple, devastating question: if this self is so solid and real, where is it? Can you find it? Let's look, right now. Not intellectually, but in your direct experience. Think of a strong opinion you hold. Something you believe firmly. Now, can you remember a time in your life, perhaps in childhood, or 5 years ago, when you believed the exact opposite just as firmly? Where is the solid you that holds opinions? It changes. Think of your body. The body you had at 10 years old is not here. Its cells have completely replaced themselves. The sensation in your foot right now is different from the sensation 5 minutes ago. Where is the solid, permanent body? Your emotions. You wake up calm. A piece of news brings anxiety. A friend calls and brings joy. A memory brings sadness. They flow like weather. Which one is the real you? The calm one? The anxious one? They all pass through. Your very sense of identity. You are different with your parents than with your friends. Different at work than alone. You are a constellation of roles, memories, and habits, flickering in and out. When you look honestly, you cannot find a fixed, central thing. What you find is a river. A continuous, flowing process. Thoughts floating by like leaves on the current. Sensations like eddies and swirls. Emotions like changes in the river's temperature and speed. You are not a statue standing in the river getting wet. You are the river. This is not a philosophical idea. It is something you can feel. Close your eyes for a moment, if you feel comfortable. Don't try to change anything. Just feel the aliveness in your hands. Is it solid, or is it a buzzing, vibrating field of energy? Listen to the sounds around you. Do they land on a solid listener, or do they simply appear and vanish in a space of awareness? Feel your breath. Is there a breather, or is there just the sensation of movement, the rise and fall? The exhaustion begins when the river tries to be a statue. When the flowing process tries to freeze itself into a fixed thing called me, that can be labeled good enough or not enough. It's like the ocean trying to hold on to a single wave. Impossible and utterly draining. Every time you think, I am not enough, you are doing two things at once. First, you are pretending the river is a statue. Second, you are holding up a measuring tape to that imaginary statue. But you are measuring a ghost. Fighting a phantom. No wonder you're tired. The Buddha traced all our suffering, anxiety, shame, pride, jealousy, this deep existential fatigue, to this one illusion. Sakayaditthi. The view of a solid, separate self. It is the root. Not low self-esteem. Not a lack of positive thinking. The very belief that there is a self that has esteem, that needs positive thoughts. So what are you, if not this solid self? You are the knowing. The awareness in which the river of experience flows. The space in which the thoughts, feelings, and sensations of this body and mind appear and disappear. You are the capacity for experience itself. And this capacity is already whole, already complete. It doesn't need to be built. It doesn't need to be valued. It simply is. Like the sky, it cannot be stained by the clouds that pass through it. Like the ocean depth, it is undisturbed by the storms on the surface. Your life's work, then, is not self-improvement. It is self-discovery. Not building a better statue, but recognizing you were never the statue to begin with. You are the river, and the awareness of the river, flowing freely. The moment you stop trying to dam the river into a permanent shape, an immense energy is released. The energy you used to waste on holding it all together becomes available for living. There was a master potter renowned throughout the province. Her bowls were said to be perfect. They were symmetrical, smooth, and held a stillness that calmed the mind. People traveled for days to buy one. A young, ambitious potter came to apprentice with her. He wanted to make perfect bowls too. For a year, he worked. He centered the clay with fierce concentration. He pulled the walls with trembling precision. But every time, something went wrong. A bowl would collapse. A rim would warp. The glaze would run. He grew frustrated, then despondent. He compared his lumpy, awkward bowls to his master's flawless ones and felt a deep shame. One day, after another failure, he snapped. He took his latest misshapen bowl and hurled it against the stone wall of the workshop. It shattered into a dozen pieces. He sank to the floor, defeated. The master potter heard the crash and walked in. She saw the pieces, and the young man's tear-streaked face. She didn't scold him. She knelt and began to carefully gather the shards. Puzzled, he watched as she took them to her work table. She ground the pieces into a fine powder. She mixed this powder with fresh clay, some water, and began to knead it. Then, she sat at her wheel. With a grace that seemed effortless, she centered the new clay, the clay that contained the dust of the broken bowl. She threw a bowl. It was not perfect in the old way. It had a wild, organic shape. The glaze, when she applied it, held flecks of the old glaze, creating a speckled, living surface. It was more beautiful than any perfect bowl she had ever made. It held a story. She handed it to the young man. "This," she said, "is the only kind of bowl there is. We break, and we are reformed from our own broken pieces. The flaw is the seed of the new shape. Your struggle is not an obstacle to the perfect bowl. It is the ingredient of the real bowl." The young man held the bowl. He saw his own failure, transformed. He understood. He had been trying to create a bowl that existed only in his mind, an ideal separate from the messy, resistant reality of clay and hands and chance. His master was not working with an ideal. She was in a dialogue with reality itself, including collapse, breaking, and dust. We are like that young potter. We carry an ideal, a perfect, fixed self, always confident, always kind, always productive, always enough. We compare our living, breathing, messy experience to this ideal and see only failure. We think our broken moments, our anxiety, our anger, our need, our weariness, are proof we are flawed clay. But the Buddha's teaching, like the master potter, invites us to include everything. Your broken pieces are not mistakes to be hidden. They are part of the material. The awareness that holds your experience doesn't reject the flawed thoughts. It includes them, and in that inclusive space, they lose their power to define you. You are not the broken bowl. You are the clay that contains all breaks and all reforms. You are the intelligence that can take the dust of yesterday's failure and make it part of today's wholeness. Stop trying to craft the perfect, unchanging statue of yourself. Engage with the actual clay of your present moment, the tightness in your chest, the quiet joy, the mundane thought, the noble intention. This is the material. This is where the real art happens. Now we come to a word that is often misunderstood, karma. In our modern spiritual marketplace, it's been twisted into a kind of cosmic banking system or a vibration-based manifesting law. You get what you deserve. Good thoughts attract good things. If something bad happens, you must have thought wrong, believed wrong, vibrated wrong. This is not only incorrect, it is a cruel and exhausting belief. It adds a layer of personal blame to every misfortune. I lost my job. I must not have believed in abundance enough. My relationship ended. I must have subconscious fears of intimacy. I am ill. I must have negative energy. This turns life into a terrifying exam where you are constantly being graded by an invisible judge, and suffering is your failing score. The Buddhist teaching on karma is utterly different, and far more compassionate and empowering. Karma simply means action. Intentional action. It is the natural law of cause and effect, as impersonal as gravity. If you plant an apple seed, an apple tree grows. Not as a reward for your good gardening, but as the natural result of that action. If you put your hand in fire, you get burned. Not as punishment, but as the natural consequence. The Buddha taught that our intentional actions of body, speech, and mind plant seeds. These seeds ripen into results. Some results are quick and obvious, you speak harshly, and someone withdraws. Some take time, a habit of patience cultivated over years creates a deeply resilient peace. But here is the crucial, often omitted part, you are not planting seeds in empty, neutral soil. You are born into a field already thick with growing plants, the results of countless actions taken by countless beings before you. Your genetics, your family, your culture, the historical moment, the social structures, this is the existing garden. You did not plant most of this. You inherited it. You stepped into an ongoing story. This is what the Buddha called dependent origination. Everything arises based on a vast, intricate web of causes and conditions. A rainstorm is the result of ocean temperature, wind patterns, atmospheric pressure. It does not fall to reward the virtuous farmer and punish the lazy one. It simply falls. A child born into war did not manifest that war with negative thoughts. A person born into privilege did not manifest it with perfect positivity. These are conditions. The rain of conditions falls on everyone. So, what is your power? Your power is in the new seeds you plant within the existing garden. You cannot control the weather. You cannot instantly uproot the old, thorny bushes planted long ago. But you can choose what to plant today, right next to them. You cannot control whether you get sick, but you can plant seeds of care for your body or seeds of neglect. You cannot control another person's heart, but you can plant seeds of honest speech or seeds of manipulation. You cannot control the outcome of a project, but you can plant seeds of diligent effort or seeds of distracted avoidance. Karma is not fate. It is not destiny written in stone. It is the ongoing cultivation of your garden. The old plants, past actions, inherited conditions, influence what will grow easily and what will be a struggle. But your present, intentional action is the new seed. This is where your true freedom and responsibility lie. Not in controlling the harvest, but in tending to the quality of the seeds you sow, moment by moment. Stop blaming the rain for your troubles. And stop crediting your positive thoughts for the sunshine. See the larger garden. And then, with clear intention, plant a seed of kindness. Plant a seed of patience. Plant a seed of honest work. Water it with your attention. That is your karma. That is your true power. The rest, the weather, the existing soil, is the reality to be worked with, not a personal indictment. On a remote, storm-lashed coast, there was a lighthouse. It was famed for its keeper, an old man who had held the post for 50 years. Ships relied on his light. In the worst gales, when waves towered like black mountains, his beam was a constant, slicing through the chaos. Sailors spoke of it with reverence. They said the keeper must be fearless, his heart steady as stone, to maintain such constancy in the midst of such fury. A young writer, seeking a story of heroic courage, traveled to the lighthouse. He had to wait for a break in the weather to be rowed to the rocky island. He found the keeper not as a stern giant, but as a small, quiet man with gentle eyes. The writer asked his questions. Aren't you terrified in the storms? How do you keep the light burning so steadily? What is the source of your courage? The old man smiled. Come, he said. He led the writer not up to the lamp, but down, deep into the base of the lighthouse, beneath the waterline. They entered a small, round chamber. In the center was a massive, polished stone wheel, connected to gears that rose up through the ceiling. It was a clockwork mechanism of incredible simplicity and weight. This, said the keeper, is the light. The lamp above is just the glass. The courage is here. He explained that once a day, he would wind this great wheel with a large iron key. The weight of the wound mechanism would then turn, with imperceptible slowness, for the next 24 hours. That turning drove the gears that rotated the lens above, creating the sweeping beam. My job, he said, is not to be brave in the storm. My job is to come down here, in the calm, and turn the key. The mechanism does the rest. The storm rages up there, he pointed upward, but down here, it is always quiet. The turning is steady because the weight is heavy and true. I don't have to be steady in the storm. I just have to remember to come down and do the winding when the sun is out. The writer was stunned. The heroism wasn't in battling the storm, it was in the faithful, mundane, daily action taken far from the chaos. Our minds are the storm-lashed tower. Our emotions are the crashing waves and howling winds. We think we need to be the brave keeper at the top, fighting the gale, forcing the light to shine through willpower. We exhaust ourselves trying to be calm in the chaos. But the Buddha's path shows us the winding chamber. The quiet place beneath the storm. That is your daily practice. It is not a dramatic battle with your thoughts. It is the simple, faithful action you take when the weather is relatively clear. A few minutes of sitting, feeling the breath. A moment of pausing before speaking. A conscious choice of kindness. A letting go of a grudge. You are not winding the mechanism to stop the storm. You are winding it so that when the storm comes, and it will, the light of awareness turns steadily on its own, powered by the weight of your consistent practice. You don't have to be the calm in the storm. You just have to tend to the source of calm when you can. Then, you can take shelter in the knowledge that the mechanism is turning, the light is sweeping, even when you feel completely tossed by the waves. Your value is not measured by how fearless you seem in the storm. It is inherent in the simple, faithful act of turning the key. Of returning, again and again, to the breath, to the present, to the intention of non-harm. Do that, and the light will shine by itself. We've spoken of the garden, the river, the lighthouse mechanism. All of this points to how we use our most precious resource, our attention. Your attention is your life energy in its most direct form. Where it goes, your life flows. Most people live with a leaky attention. It spills everywhere. A conversation while thinking about your to-do list. Eating while watching a screen. Walking while rehearsing an old argument. Your attention is fractured, scattered, pouring into a dozen cracks in the vessel of your day. And you wonder why you're exhausted by evening, even if you did nothing. The Buddha taught samavayama, right effort or wise effort. It's not about grim determination or forcing yourself to be positive. It's the art of wise stewardship of your attention. He framed it as tending an inner ecology. First, prevent the unwholesome from arising. This isn't repression. It's wisdom. You know that scrolling through certain social media leaves you feeling drained and envious. Wise effort is choosing not to pick up the phone. You know that certain conversations with a particular person always spiral into resentment. Wise effort is gently changing the subject or shortening the interaction. You are not building a wall. You are refusing to water the seeds you don't want to grow. You guard the gates of your senses with discernment. Second, abandon the unwholesome that has arisen. When you notice worry has already grabbed you, or irritation is already flaring, you don't have to fuel it. This isn't stop feeling that. It's a simple, gentle redirect. You notice, worry is here. And you consciously bring your attention to the feeling of your feet on the floor. To the sounds in the room. You don't fight the worry. You just step out of its story and into direct sensation. You cease feeding it with your attention, and like a fire without fuel, it begins to subside. Third, cultivate the wholesome. This is actively watering the good seeds. When a feeling of gratitude spontaneously arises, for a warm cup, a patch of sun, stay with it. Don't just notice it and rush on. Dwell in it for 3 breaths. When an impulse of kindness comes, to hold a door, to send a kind text, act on it and then feel the warmth of that action. Give your attention to what is already good, already whole, already peaceful in your experience. We are so quick to analyze what's wrong. Wise effort is to savor what's right. Fourth, maintain the wholesome that has arisen. This is the most neglected step. You finally feel a sense of peace during a walk. What does the mind do? Immediately, this is nice. How do I keep this? What should I do next to make sure I don't lose it? And just like that, you've left the peace to chase an idea about peace. When peace is here, just let it be. Don't schedule it, don't try to own it. Rest in it. Let the mind learn the feeling of rest so it recognizes the path back. This fourfold effort is gardening. You're not creating the plants. You're creating the conditions for some to flourish and others to reseed. Your attention is the water and the sun. Try this today. For the next hour, just notice where your attention goes. Not to judge, but to see. Is it on the actual task in front of your hands? Or is it in a remembered past or an imagined future? Each time you notice it has drifted into a story of, what if, or, if only, gently bring it back to one sensory anchor, the breath, or the colors you see, or the sounds you hear. This simple act of returning is the entire practice. It is the winding of the lighthouse mechanism. It is the tending of the garden. It is how the river of your life learns to flow with less resistance, less wasted energy on side channels that lead nowhere. Your attention, wisely directed, is how you plant the seeds of a future less dominated by the myth of not enough. You are cultivating the soil in which the truth of your wholeness can naturally sprout. In a bustling city known for its noise and haste, there was a tailor whose shop was in a narrow, forgotten alley. He was famous for a peculiar specialty. He mended not clothes, but silences. People would come to him burdened. A woman whose mind was a riot of clanging thoughts after a bitter divorce. A man whose heart echoed with the shouts of his angry father, decades gone. A child who heard only the taunts of classmates in every quiet moment. The tailor's process was always the same. He would invite them to sit in a simple, quiet room at the back of his shop. There was nothing in it but a single cushion and a vase that held a single branch, changing with the season. He would not speak. He would sit with them. He would begin to sew, not on fabric, but in the air. His needle was invisible, his thread was the quiet itself. He would move his hands slowly, deliberately, as if stitching two edges of a torn quiet together. Clients reported strange sensations. The woman with the clanging thoughts said it was as if a blanket of soft wool was being slowly drawn over the noise, not silencing it, but allowing her to hear the space between the clangs. The man felt the shouts recede, not disappearing, but becoming distant, like thunder miles away. The child found that between the remembered taunts, he could suddenly hear the faint, friendly hum of the city itself, like a bee in a far-off garden. People asked the tailor what thread he used. He would only say, the same thread that holds the stars in place and connects one breath to the next. They thought he was being poetic. But he meant it literally. One day, a skeptical philosopher visited. "This is nonsense," he said. "You are performing a pantomime. You are stitching nothing with nothing." The tailor nodded. "Exactly." He gestured to the space between them. "What is this nothing that allows you to see me, to hear my voice, to have your thought of skepticism?" That nothing is the fabric. The rips and tears are the stories you believe are solid. My stitching is just attention, returning again and again to the fabric, until the client remembers it was always whole. He looked at the philosopher. "Your mind is a storm of concepts tearing at each other. You came here hoping I would stitch a better, stronger concept over the tear. I am not interested in your concepts. I am interested in the space that holds them. Feel that." The philosopher, despite himself, closed his eyes. In the quiet room, behind his arguments, he felt it. A vast, soft, intelligent presence that had been there all along, underneath every thought he'd ever had. It felt like coming home. A tear rolled down his cheek. It was the first silence he had known since childhood. The tailor smiled, his hands moving gently. "Ah," he said softly. "There. I've just finished the stitch. We are all that philosopher. We come to spiritual teachings, to therapy, to self-help, looking for a better concept to stitch over our wounds. I am enough. I am worthy. These are beautiful, but they are still concepts. They are patches. The Buddha's deeper teaching is the work of the tailor. It points you to the fabric itself, the silent, aware presence that is your true nature. Your thoughts of unworthiness are just rips in that fabric. The practice is not to fight the rips, but to bring a gentle, persistent attention, the invisible needle, back to the wholeness of the fabric that surrounds them. In that attention, the rips are seen for what they are, temporary patterns in an unbroken field. You don't need to create silence. You need to remember the silence that already holds the noise. Every time you pause and feel the breath, you are taking a stitch. Every time you notice a thought without buying its story, you are taking a stitch. Slowly, you mend your relationship with the background silence of your own being. And in that mending, you find you were never truly torn. From this understanding of our true nature, we can look at one of the most painful patterns, the compulsion to say yes when we mean no, to shrink so others can be comfortable. To give until we are empty, believing this is compassion. We often swing between two extremes. One pole, complete self-abandonment. We are the doormat, the eternal giver, the one who carries everyone's emotional water. We think this is kindness. But underneath, it is fear. Fear of rejection, of conflict, of not being seen as good. This pole leads to exhaustion, resentment, and a quiet, simmering anger. The other pole, rigid self-protection. We build high walls. We say no to everything. We become hard, distant, armored. This is fear too, fear of being hurt, of being drained, of vulnerability. This pole leads to isolation, loneliness, and a heart that grows cold. The Buddha called the path between these extremes the middle way. He found it after trying both indulgence and extreme self-denial. Neither worked. The middle way is not a mathematical midpoint. It is a dynamic, wise balancing. It's the understanding that true compassion includes yourself. Not as an afterthought, but as the first thought. Imagine a deep well. At the bottom is clear, cool water, your peace, your energy, your compassion. You have a bucket. You can draw water to give to others, to listen, to help, to care. But if you give away the water without ever lowering the bucket back into the well to refill it, you will soon be hauling up an empty bucket, scraping the dry sides. You'll have nothing to give, and you'll resent the people asking for water. Compassion that depletes you is not sustainable compassion. It's fear disguised as virtue. Wise compassion knows the well must be tended. It knows that saying no to a request is sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do. For yourself and for the other person. It prevents the resentment that poisons future giving. The Buddha didn't teach us to be saints who feel no personal needs. He taught us to be wise stewards of this human life. This means having boundaries. But boundaries in Buddhism are not walls of me versus you. They are born of discernment. Discernment asks, what is happening here? Is this a genuine request I can meet from my fullness? Or is this a demand I am meeting from my fear? Who do I become in this interaction? More patient, or more resentful? More clear, or more confused? You can love someone deeply and choose not to answer their phone call tonight because you need rest. You can care about a cause and not volunteer this month because your plate is full. You can wish someone healing while recognizing you are not the one to provide it, that your proximity to their current chaos harms you both. This is not selfishness. It is the foundation of sustainable care. It is the middle way. You are not a bottomless well. You are a human being with a bucket. Draw wisely. Give generously from what you have. And always, always, lower the bucket back into the well of your own presence, your own quiet, your own breath, to be refilled. The most compassionate thing you can offer the world is a you that is not resentful, not exhausted, not pretending. A you that is present, grounded, and real. That authenticity is a gift far greater than any forced yes. On the border of two vast kingdoms stood a single, ancient gate. One kingdom, to the east, was called reactivity. It was a land of sudden storms, dramatic passions, quick judgments, and fiery debates. Life there was intense, vivid, and utterly exhausting. The other kingdom, to the west, was called response. It was a land of deep valleys, clear lakes, and wide skies. The weather changed slowly there. Actions felt considered. There was a pervasive quiet, even in activity. For centuries, people believed these were separate lands, ruled by different natures. You were born in one and could only visit the other briefly. The gate between them was tended by a solitary figure known only as the gatekeeper. People from reactivity, weary of their storms, would come to the gate and beg, "Let me in. I want the peace of response." The gatekeeper would ask, "What do you bring with you?" The person would often shout, "I bring my desire for peace. My frustration with my land. My analysis of why it's so stormy." The gatekeeper would shake his head gently. You cannot bring the storms of reactivity into response. They dissolve at the border. You may enter, but you must leave your storms behind. "But they are mine," the person would cry, clinging to their anger, their anxiety, their story of injustice. "They define me." Precisely, the gatekeeper would say. And as long as they define you, you cannot cross. The gate does not lock you out. Your identification with the weather locks you out. One day, a woman came from reactivity. She was not shouting. She was soaked from the latest storm, shivering, utterly spent. She stood before the gatekeeper and said nothing. She was too tired to even state her case. The gatekeeper looked at her. "What do you bring?" She looked at her empty hands. She felt the cold rain on her skin, the tension in her shoulders from bracing against the wind. And then, behind the fatigue, she noticed something else. A simple, bare awareness of being cold, of being tired, of standing at a gate. It was a quiet, neutral knowing. She said, softly, "I bring, the one who feels the rain." The gatekeeper smiled. He stepped aside. "Welcome," he said. As she walked across the threshold, a remarkable thing happened. The cold didn't vanish, but it stopped being her cold. It became a sensation in a field of awareness. The fatigue remained, but it was no longer a verdict on her life, it was just a heavy feeling. She was in response. She realized the kingdoms were not separate lands, but different relationships to experience. Reactivity is when you are the storm. Response is when you feel the storm, from the quiet sky of awareness that holds it. The gate is not a geographical place. It is the space between a trigger and your reaction. That space is the gatekeeper's domain. In that pause, one breath long, lies the freedom to choose. You can walk through, identified with the storm, and stay in the land of exhaustion. Or you can, for an instant, recognize yourself as the one who feels this, and step into a completely different kingdom of being. The Buddha was the ultimate gatekeeper, pointing to that space. He didn't offer a new identity. He offered the key to the gate, simple, non-identified awareness. Use it. We've touched on the storms. Let's go deeper into what it means to be the sky that holds them. This is upekkha, equanimity. It's perhaps the most misunderstood quality in Buddhism. It is not indifference. It is not cold detachment. It is not caring. True equanimity is vast, warm, and inclusive. It is the capacity of the heart-mind to hold all experiences, pleasure and pain, praise and blame, gain and loss, with balance, without being knocked over, without being compelled to grasp or push away. Think of the sun. It shines on the flowering meadow and on the garbage heap with equal, unwavering light. It does not prefer one over the other. Its nature is to shine. It is not stained by what it illuminates. The meadow does not improve the sun. The garbage heap does not corrupt it. Your awareness is like that sun. Your natural, sky-like mind can hold a thought of love and a thought of jealousy with the same space. We lose our equanimity not because awareness fails, but because we, the identified self, rush in to take sides. We try to be the meadow and reject the garbage heap. We exhaust ourselves in this civil war. The Buddha taught that equanimity is the protector of compassion. Without it, compassion becomes sentimental, exhausting, and tied to outcomes. You help someone, and if they don't get better or aren't grateful, you feel crushed. With equanimity, you can offer help cleanly, without the hidden hook of needing a particular result. You can care deeply, and simultaneously understand that outcomes are shaped by 1,000 factors beyond your control. This is freedom. How do you cultivate this? You don't cultivate the sky. You notice it's already there. The practice is to notice when you become identified with a cloud, a dense cloud of anger, a gray cloud of sadness, a brilliant, tempting cloud of pride. In that moment, instead of fighting the cloud or pretending it's not there, you can do a simple thing: feel the space around it. Feel the awareness in which the cloud is floating. Feel the body sensations that come with the emotion as sensations: tightness, heat, trembling, without immediately calling them my anger. Just feel them as energy moving in the space of the body. You are practicing being the sky, not the weather. The sky doesn't do anything to the clouds. It simply provides the space for them to form, drift, and dissolve. Your job is to stop arguing with the weather and remember your sky nature. This is why meditation is not about achieving a blank mind. It's about getting familiar with the sky. You sit, and thoughts come, clouds. You gently return to the breath, the spacious, rhythmic movement within the sky. Over and over. You are not training to have no thoughts. You are training to recognize yourself as the aware space that is never disturbed by any thought. With this sky-like mind, life becomes lighter. Criticism arises. It's a dark cloud. You feel its sting, but you also feel the vast space that is not stung. It passes. Joy arises, a luminous cloud. You enjoy its light, but you don't cling, because you know it is also passing weather in your sky. You engage with life fully, but you are no longer at war with its inevitable changes. Equanimity is the ultimate relaxation. It is the end of the exhausting fight to make the clouds behave. You learn to float in your own sky, in peace, as all things come and go. In the heart of an ancient city, there was a library unlike any other. It was not called the Library of Knowledge, but the Library of Lost Answers. People came here not to find solutions, but to deposit them. Here's how it worked. When a person was tormented by a question, why am I not good enough? Why did they leave me? What is my purpose? They would eventually wear themselves out seeking an answer. In their exhaustion, they would sometimes have a fleeting moment of clarity where they saw that the question itself was the source of their pain, not the lack of an answer. In that moment, they would write down their question on a slip of parchment. Then, they would write down the best, most profound answer they had ever found or invented. They would roll the parchment tightly, tie it with a thread, and bring it to the library. The librarian, a woman with eyes that held a deep, still silence, would receive it. She would not read it. She would simply take it to a great hall filled with countless identical wooden boxes, stacked to the ceiling. She would place the scroll inside an empty box and close the lid. Then, she would give the person a small, smooth stone from a basket. The answer is now safe, she would say. You may visit it whenever you wish. But for now, you are free to simply live the question, without needing to solve it. People would leave, holding their stone. They reported a strange phenomenon. The weight of the desperate search was gone. They felt lighter. Occasionally, the old anxiety would return. They would clutch their stone, and remember their answer was safe in the library. This allowed them to let go of the mental search, just for a moment. And in that moment, something else would happen. They would notice the sunlight on the cobblestones. They would really taste their food. They would hear their child's laughter without an inner commentary. The answers in the boxes were never needed again. The stone was just a reminder, you have permission to not know. One seeker, a philosopher, returned to the library years later. He asked the librarian, "What is the point of this? You collect answers no one ever reads. You give people stones. It seems like a beautiful deception." The librarian led him to the great hall. She opened a few boxes at random, showing him the scrolls. "Read them," she said. He unrolled one. The question, "How can I find true love?" The written answer was a long, poetic treatise on self-love and openness. He unrolled another. "Why do I suffer?" The answer was a detailed analysis of attachment and impermanence. Another, "What is my worth?" The answer was a passionate affirmation of inherent human dignity. "These are all good answers," the philosopher said, puzzled. "Wise, even." "Yes," said the librarian. "And utterly useless to the one who wrote them. They were brilliant bandages on a wound that could only heal from the inside. The bandage was necessary for a time, to stop the bleeding of frantic seeking. But the healing happened when they stopped picking at the wound, when they placed the bandage here and walked out into the air. She gestured around the vast hall. This is not a library of answers. It is a monument to the moment when a human being stopped believing that a concept could save them. The stone I give them is not a key to this place. It is a paperweight, to hold down the fluttering pages of their searching mind, so they can finally see the world that was always in front of them. We treat our deepest existential questions like life or death problems to be solved. We scour philosophies, therapies, and spiritual texts for the perfect answer that will finally make us feel complete. The Buddha's insight was like the librarian's. He saw that the search itself was the disease. Not because there are no answers, but because the identity of the seeker keeps you trapped. The question, who am I, is not meant to be answered with another concept, I am awareness, I am love, I am enough. Those can be helpful pointers, like the scrolls in the boxes. But the real freedom is in placing the scroll in the box. It's in giving yourself permission to not have a solid, conceptual answer. It's in resting as the open, questioning space itself. In that rest, the seeking mind dissolves, and what remains is the direct, unanswerable experience of being. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a mystery to be lived. Put down the scroll. Hold the stone. And feel the sun on your skin, right now. From this place of rested being, we can look at one of our most exhausting habits, explaining ourselves. We have an inner prosecutor who believes that if we just find the right words, the perfect combination of logic and emotion, we can make others see the real us, understand our intentions, and absolve us of their judgments. Watch this pattern. Someone misunderstands you. A heat rises in your chest. Your mind scrambles to assemble evidence. Let me explain. You see, what I meant was, if you consider the context, words pile up like a defensive wall. And with each sentence, you feel your energy draining, your center crumbling. You are in a trial where you are the defendant, prosecutor, and witness all at once. The Buddha taught samavaka, wise speech. It is one of the pillars of the path. Wise speech is truthful, helpful, spoken at the right time, and motivated by kindness. Notice what is not in that definition. It does not have to defend you. It does not have to change someone's mind about you. It does not have to make them like you. Sometimes, the wisest, most compassionate speech is silence. Not a cold, punishing silence, but a spacious, compassionate silence that recognizes, this person is not listening to understand. They are listening to confirm what they already believe. No amount of my words will bridge this gap. My peace is more important than winning this argument. There is an old story of two monks walking by a river. A wealthy, arrogant man in a fine carriage splashed them with mud as he sped by. The younger monk shouted in anger, "How rude! He should be taught a lesson." The older monk simply looked down at his muddy robes, then at the river. He walked to the water's edge and began to wash the mud away. He said nothing. The younger monk fumed. "Aren't you angry? He disrespected us." The older monk replied, "I washed away the mud from my robes. You are still carrying the mud he threw in your mind. When you over-explain, you are carrying the mud in your mind. You are trying to hand someone a towel for mud they may not even know they threw. Your words become the mud you can't wash off. This doesn't mean you never clarify or set the record straight when it's helpful. But discernment is key. Ask yourself, is this person asking a genuine question from a place of curiosity? Or are they demanding I justify myself to their court? Will my words here create understanding, or just more entanglement? The urge to over-explain often comes from childhood, when a caregiver's misunderstanding felt like a threat to our safety and love. We learned that survival depended on being understood correctly. You are not that child anymore. Your safety as an adult does not depend on everyone's accurate perception of you. Practice noticing the urge. Feel it in the body, the tight throat, the clenched stomach, the heat in the face. That is the old program running. Breathe into that space. You have a choice. You can follow the program and launch into your defense. Or you can offer the situation a gentle, internal silence. They have seen what they have seen. You can acknowledge their perspective without adopting it as your truth. You can let their judgment pass through you like wine through a screen, leaving you intact. Protecting your peace is not unkind. It is the foundation from which any genuine kindness can later flow. When you are no longer leaking energy through unnecessary explanations, you have more to offer when it truly matters. Your words become fewer, cleaner, and carry more weight, because they come from a place of fullness, not from a desperate need to be seen. In a great forest grew two trees side by side, a mighty oak and a graceful weeping willow. The oak was proud. Its roots were deep, its trunk unyielding. It withstood storms by being immovable, by resisting with all its might. Strength, said the oak, is in never bending. The willow had a different way. When the wind howled, the oak would grit its wooden fibers and stand rigid. The willow would sway, its long branches flowing with the gusts, sometimes bending so low its tips touched the earth. The oak pitied the willow. You have no dignity, it would rustle. You surrender to every breeze. One winter, a storm of legendary ferocity struck the forest. A hurricane-force wind screamed through the trees. The oak, as always, refused to bend. It held its ground with magnificent stubbornness. The wind pushed harder. There was a sound like a cannon shot, a deep, terrible crack. The great oak had snapped halfway up its trunk. It crashed to the earth, destroyed. The willow, meanwhile, bent almost double. It let the wind blow through it, over it, around it. It surrendered completely to the force, offering no resistance. Branches whipped, leaves were torn away, but its core trunk remained flexible, rooted. When the storm finally passed, the willow slowly, gracefully, straightened itself. It was battered, but alive and rooted. Around it lay the splintered remains of the once proud oak. The forest elders spoke of the two trees for generations. They said the oak confused rigidity with strength. It thought its solid, separate self was its power. The willow knew its strength was in its connection to the earth and its flexibility. It knew it was part of the wind, not separate from it. By not resisting, by allowing itself to be moved, it survived. We are so often the oak. We believe our strength is in our solidity, our fixed opinions, our rigid boundaries, our unchanging story of who we are. When the storms of life come, loss, change, criticism, we brace. We resist. We try to stand unmoved. And sometimes, we break. The exhaustion comes from the constant bracing. The Buddha's path is the way of the willow. It is the strength of non-resistance. Not passivity, but a deep flexibility that comes from knowing your true nature is not the rigid trunk of a separate self, but the aware, rooted presence that can sway with experience without breaking. When a storm of anger arises, can you be the willow? Feel it, sway with its energy without acting it out, without believing you are the storm. When a gale of anxiety blows, can you bend into the sensation, allowing it to move through you, knowing you are the rooted space that holds it? This is equanimity in action. This is the end of the exhausting war with your own experience. You stop being the oak, fighting every wind. You become the willow, rooted in awareness, flexible in presence, surviving every storm by being one with it, not against it. We've spoken of gardens, skies, and willow trees. How does this translate into daily life? How do we live from this understanding? The Buddha offered trainings, not commands. They are often called precepts. People hear precepts and think of restrictive rules. Don't do this. Don't do that. They sound like a list of shoulds that will make life harder. But from the perspective of non-self and the end of seeking, the precepts are revealed as something else entirely, the most profound and practical acts of self-love. They are not rules imposed from outside. They are descriptions of what a life of minimal self-created suffering looks like. They are the user's manual for the human experience, written by those who looked very closely at what causes pain and what causes peace. Let's look at the 5 basic trainings through this lens. First, to refrain from harming living beings. On the surface, don't kill, don't be violent. Look deeper, who is the being you harm most often? Yourself. Every time you force yourself past exhaustion, stay in a soul-crushing situation, or speak to yourself with cruel contempt, you are harming a living being. This precept is a vow of friendship to yourself. I will not harm this life I am responsible for. Second, to refrain from taking what is not given. On the surface, don't steal. Look deeper, your time, energy, and attention are your most precious gifts. When you give them away compulsively to every demand, to social media, to people who don't value them, you are stealing from your own life. You are taking peace and presence from yourself and giving it to something that does not truly have a claim on it. This precept is about discerning stewardship of your inner resources. Third, to refrain from sexual misconduct. Traditionally, this means avoiding harm through sexuality. Broadened. It is about not betraying yourself for the sake of connection or pleasure. How often do you ignore your own discomfort, violate your own boundaries, or abandon your truth in the hope of being loved, chosen, or validated? This precept is a vow of integrity. I will not abandon myself to belong. Fourth, to refrain from false speech. On the surface, don't lie. Look deeper, the most corrosive lies are the ones we tell ourselves. I'm fine. It doesn't bother me. I can handle it. When you are not honest with yourself about your limits, your feelings, your needs, you are building your life on false data. You cannot navigate wisely with a broken compass. This precept is a vow of inner truthfulness. Fifth, to refrain from intoxicants that cloud the mind. On the surface, avoid drugs and alcohol. Look deeper. An intoxicant is anything you use to numb yourself from your direct experience. This can be substances, but also compulsive work, endless scrolling, gossip, drama, fantasy, anything that pulls you away from the reality of the present moment. This precept is a vow of clarity. I will not run from what is here. These are not rules to follow to become a good Buddhist. They are practices to take up because you've seen that living otherwise creates suffering for you. They protect the clarity of your sky-like mind. They tend the garden of your heart. They are how you live the middle way. You will break them. Everyone does. The practice is not perfection, it is noticing. Ah, I just spoke harshly to myself. That is harm. I am returning to my intention of friendliness. Living the precepts is the ultimate act of self-care. It is building a life where you are not constantly at war with yourself, where you are not your own abuser, thief, betrayer, liar, or intoxicator. It creates the inner conditions of peace from which all genuine peace in the world can flow. In the village of Kafu, there was an old mirror maker. His mirrors were not like others. They did not flatter. They did not distort. If you looked into one, you would see yourself exactly as you were in that moment, every detail, every shadow, every light. People found them unsettling. They preferred the merchants who sold polished bronze that gave a warm, soft glow, hiding imperfections. The mirror maker's shop was quiet. He spent his days in a dusty workshop, not making many mirrors, but polishing one single, large sheet of silver-backed glass with infinite patience. A young artist, struggling with his work and his self-doubt, heard of the mirror maker. He was tired of his own inner distortions, the way his mind either inflated his ego or crushed it. He sought out the old man. "I need to see myself clearly," the artist said. "My mind is a funhouse mirror. One day I'm a giant, the next I'm a bug. Can you make me a mirror that shows the truth?" The mirror maker nodded. He didn't hand him a mirror. He led him to the back of the workshop. There, leaning against a wall, was the large sheet of glass, flawlessly clear. "Look," he said. The artist stepped in front of it. He saw his own anxious face, the furrow in his brow, the uncertainty in his eyes. He saw the dust on his jacket, the paint under his nails. It was uncomfortably precise. "It just shows my surface," he said, disappointed. "What did you expect to see?" the mirror maker asked. "My soul. My worth. My potential. Something deeper." The old man picked up a cloth and began to gently wipe the surface of the glass. The mirror does not show you. It shows what appears before it. Right now, that is the form of a young man with paint on his hands. If a dog walks by, it shows a dog. If a flower is held before it, it shows a flower. It has no opinion. It holds no image. It is simply clear. He turned to the artist. "You are asking the mirror to give you a stable image of a self. But a clear mirror cannot do that, because what you call self is not a stable image. It is a flowing appearance. The mind that seeks a solid reflection is the problem. It is like a man who stands before a river and is angry that his reflection in the water keeps moving. The artist stared into the mirror. He watched his own reflection as a thought arose. This is getting me nowhere. He saw the subtle shift in his expression, the slight tightening around his mouth. He saw the reflection of the thought, not the thought itself. A space opened. The clarity you seek, said the mirror maker softly, is not in the reflection. It is in the mirror itself. You are not the anxious face. You are the capacity to see the anxious face. You are not the thought of doubt. You are the space in which the thought arises and vanishes. Polish that. Not to see a better image, but to see that you were never the image at all. The artist left without a physical mirror. But he had received the teaching. He began to practice seeing his thoughts and feelings as reflections in the clear mirror of his awareness. His self-image lost its solidity. Some days the reflection was confident, some days fearful. But he was less and less concerned with the reflection, and more abiding as the mirror. Clear, empty, and precisely reflective of each passing moment. We spend our lives judging the reflection. We try to adjust the lighting, the angle, to get a better picture of ourselves. We are desperate for a mirror that tells us we are handsome, worthy, complete. The Buddha's teaching offers no such flattering glass. It points you to the mirrorness of your own mind. Pure, aware, empty of any permanent image. Your job is not to fix the reflection. Your job is to polish the mirror. Through mindfulness, through ethical living, through wise attention, so that it can reflect life with impeccable, unbiased clarity. In that clarity, the question of the reflection's worth becomes irrelevant. The mirror is already perfect. It always was. We circle back to where we began, the hum, the homesickness, the chase. After all these teachings, non-self, karma, the middle way, equanimity, wise speech, the precepts, what is the final destination? There is none. That is the secret. The final teaching of the Buddha is the end of seeking. Not because you have found the thing you were looking for, but because you have seen that what you were looking for was never lost, and the one who was looking was never separate. The seeker is the last illusion. It is the fixed self, dressed in spiritual clothing, now seeking enlightenment, seeking peace, seeking the end of suffering. It is still the gardener trying to weed the garden, the potter trying to make the perfect bowl, the philosopher demanding an answer from the librarian. The path does not lead you to a new, enlightened self. It leads you to the falling away of the seeker. When you truly see that there is no solid self to improve, defend, or complete, the seeking engine runs out of fuel. It sputters and stops. What remains is not a state of achievement, but a simple, ordinary presence. You come home to the immediacy of this moment, without wanting it to be anything else. This is not a dramatic, fireworks moment, though it can be. More often, it's a quiet, gradual dissolving. You notice you're no longer compulsively checking your spiritual progress. You're no longer trying to be mindful. You're just living, and awareness is naturally present. The feeling of not enough still arises sometimes, but it's like a familiar, harmless ghost. You see it, you feel it, and you know it's just a pattern in the mind, not the truth of your being. You eat your rice porridge. And then, you wash your bowl. This is the great simplicity. Life becomes direct. When you are hungry, you eat. When you are tired, you rest. When someone is suffering, compassion moves you to help, without a complex story about being a helper. When you make a mistake, you correct it, without a story about being a failure. You stop trying to walk the path. You realize you are the path, and every step is the arrival. This doesn't mean passivity. It means action flows from wholeness, not lack. You work, not to prove your worth, but because the work is there to be done. You love, not to be completed, but because love is the natural expression of a non-separate heart. You care for yourself, not because you are special, but because this life is a precious, temporary gift to be tended. So, if you take one thing from all these words, let it be this permission: you can stop seeking. Not by giving up, but by looking clearly at the seeker. Ask, who is it that wants to be enlightened? Who is it that feels not enough? Look for that entity. You won't find a thing. You'll find a collection of thoughts seeking themselves. In that looking, the seeking falls away. And what is revealed is what was here before the search began: this breath, this sound, this aliveness, unadorned, unimproved, already complete. You are home. You have always been home. The exhausting journey was just a dream of leaving. We've traveled together through many concepts and stories. If your mind is full, let it be full. If it is tired, let it be tired. There is no test to pass. No understanding to achieve. These teachings are not a pill to swallow. They are a mirror to look into. They are a garden to sit in. They are a lighthouse mechanism to wind, day by day. You will forget all of this. That's okay. The river forgets it's a river sometimes and tries to be a stone. The sky forgets it's the sky and gets lost in a cloud. This is the human dance. Forgetting and remembering. Falling asleep and waking up. When you forget, when the old hum of "not enough" returns with its familiar ache, be gentle. Don't use these teachings as a new club to beat yourself with: I should know better. I should be non-attached. That's just the seeker in new clothes. Instead, come back to the simplest thing. One breath. The feeling of the body sitting or lying down. The sounds around you. In that direct sensory experience, the story of me and my inadequacy softens. It may not vanish, but it is seen as a story, not as reality. That is the practice. Not achieving a permanent state of enlightenment, but the moment-to-moment return to what is real, prior to story. The return to the garden, to the river, to the sky, to the mirror. Thank you. Thank you for your attention, for your courage in looking at these things, for staying present with your own experience. This sharing is an honor. If anything here resonated, if it felt like a reminder of something you already knew deep down, then tend that feeling. Water that seed. Let it grow in its own time. You are exactly where you need to be. The path is unfolding beneath your feet, step by step. There is no rush. There is only this, just as it is. Be at peace. Be gentle with yourself. And remember, you are always welcome at Monk's Temple. Goodbye for now.